Welcome, this is Melinda Barlow, CZT, Certified Zentangle Teacher, and welcome to May 29th live Zoom class. And we have about 54, it looks like 50, that's what I can see, 54 students in the class today. And these are the tangles we're going to do. This is the template that I did, and I thought it got a little on the busy side, so I kind of stopped. But these are the tangles we're going to do, and I'm going to do them on small squares of tiles, the 3.5-inch tiles. So I'm going to move this to the side. And I'm just going to get my 3-inch tile out. And I'm also going to use a pencil. And I love the fact that we have a little ceremony, and I haven't done it. Okay, somebody is not muted. Did somebody have a question? Okay, one moment. Okay, I'm back. We just had a little technical difficulty there, and I wanted to chat with my husband. Okay, so in Zentangle, we are indeedly grateful for. I cannot tell how grateful I am for the art of Zentangle, but for just things in general. And so we need to show gratitude. So we just are thankful for the tools we have. And we're going to start by putting a dot in the corner of your tile. And that is kind of the ceremony of Zentangle, is to put a dot in each corner. And that's your basic beginner Zentangle. And then draw a border. And I always draw a border that is not straight. I always try to have a little movement in my border, because people say, I can't even draw a straight line. I don't know how many times I've heard that. I can't even draw a straight line, so I could never do that. And I'm going to, because I'm teaching a class, I'm not going to divide this into a string. I'm going to use my tangle to create the string. And we're going to start with what goes around in here. And so I'm going to take my pen, and we're going to start. I'm using an 01, a micron 01. I like the tininess of it. And I'm going to come in closer on my tile so you can see a little better. And I'm just going to start on the edge, and I'm going to do a curve, but it's going to stop before it gets to that line, about maybe 1/8 of an inch away before it gets to that line. And then I'm going to start another one on this side, about 1/8 of an inch away. And it's going to come up and curve going back the other direction and stop. So each one of these curve going the opposite direction, but they always stop before they get to the line. And then you go right across from it and do another one. And they just kind of meander through your work. And mine's going to come over and just kind of run off the edge. So none of these lines are correct. This line draws up and around and stops. Then I skip under, and this one goes up, and it goes around the other direction and stops. It doesn't have to go the other direction, but it kind of gives that loopy, round. And I kind of had fun with going opposite directions. Then again, stop. And it just goes all the way to the end. And once you have your first part of what goes around, drawn, we're going to draw the second part of it. And this part is, we're going to just echo what we've drawn. And it really doesn't matter if you go on the either side of your line. So whichever you feel comfortable with. I will probably go beneath, and I'm going to come up, staying equally. This time I'm going to come down and touch, so it's going to join. And then I'm going to come on the other side. And the idea is to stay as equal as possible. Then I'm going to join that one and come here. And I'm going to rotate my tile because it's easier for me if I rotate to get it in a comfortable position to draw. And we just aura. And you can see right here, I'm going to get really close so you can see that I'm just going to come in with that one. And so it looks like it's holly bine underneath. Then I'm going to come on this side. And I'm able to just come right next to that. And come around, and there I'm going to join those two because I'm going to come on this side. And I go fairly slow so that I can concentrate on keeping my line as even as possible. And sometimes it's not. But there we have what goes around. And I kind of when I saw it, I thought of the phrase, what goes around comes around. And that kind of hit me. It's a little phrase that means if you are nice, you will always get back. Be nice. I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction, and when you give out good stuff comes back to you, but vice versa. If you're not nice things come back to you. So I kind of fell in love with this one just because of the name, what goes around comes around. Well, it's just what goes around. I put on what comes around. And I did that in my class too. I said, we kind of did that. And now we have some spaces that we can tangle in. It's created a string of sorts. And I'm going to, I did a couple of things on, you can see my what goes around comes around on these tiles that I did. This little tangle right here is Emily. It was for my two granddaughters, Amy and Emily, and I named it Emily because, and they're watching today, so they can see their little tangle that was given their name. And we'll draw that one. But we're going to do this one that's right here in the center, and it is. Oh, I'm going to probably slaughter this name. Balaoi. I'm going to let you look, Doug, and see. I'm going to have him pronounce that for me.
Where am I looking?
You had to ask where he was. What was it?
Baloya.
Baloya. Thank you. I don't know. I'm just so dyslexic, and I'll have to admit, I have an audio deficiency when I can't hear vowel sounds. I had to learn every vowel sound and practice as a child in order to learn how to spell things. And still at this time, if I get a word that is not makes so much sense. I have a hard time because I have to think. All vowels sound the same. A, E, I, O, U, all have the same sound to me when I hear them in a word. It's very confusing for most people. But I have a nephew who has the same problem, and it's we struggle. So here we are with our next tangle, and I start out with a line, and so I'm just going to draw a line in the center of here because I think that is just a good place to, just one line straight across and stop at both of those edges. You don't want to go under. You're just going to, it's going to be in between this. And then you're going to draw a parallel line with it. And I try to keep it the same size as I did what goes around. Keeping that consistency in my tangle makes it feel, more uniform for me and all hold together. And now I'm going to put a triangle on the bottom, about in the middle, and fill this in. Making sure you don't push hard with your pen. You want to hold your pen lightly so you don't get tension in you. We want to keep that tension down. And now we're going to draw another line, and I'm going to draw from the tip of that straight out to that side, and then underneath and straight out to that side. And then aura that, or echo, whichever you feel works. And then I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to do the same here. I'm not going to go inside of this I'll show you the difference. So here I went inside of the round one. That loop was on the inside, but here it's not. So I decided I'm not going to do it even on the inside loops. I am not going to fill it in. I'm going to leave it. And then we're going to aura that. And then we're going to come back to the first one we did, and we know which one that is because it's on top. And we're going to put an aura. And we're just going to go around. And you can do 2 lines or 1 line. If you want to double, do it double, you can. That's when your creativity sets in and you do what you feel good at. But we're just going to, and did anyone notice I made and I didn't say oops because in class they would know what that meant. I didn't rotate it going the right direction. And so instead of doing it, my lines were just I just did I'm not going to call it a mistake.
A creative opportunity.
Yes. Well, and you really don't see those when somebody makes a misstroke on a pen. Most of the time, the only person that sees it is yourself. Now, I could stop here, which for me, since I've kind of come to the end, and I could do another one. So I have 2 inside of here. So if I wanted to do another one that intertwined with this one, which I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw another line, make my triangle, And then I'm going to do my and if my lines don't quite match up, I will go in there and kind of fill that in. And so I can do another one in here, which gives this a lot more interest than having a whole bunch of lines that just keep going out. This one, I was going to look to see when I did this. I didn't put a date on it. I don't remember when it was done. If I'd have put a date, it would have helped me know when I drew that. But you can see this one just goes out, but this will give just a little bit different interest in what we're doing, what I'm doing. And then I'm just going to rotate. And if I always rotate going the same direction, then I will make sure that my little log cabin-y lines or my intersecting lines end up intersecting about the same. Or, you know, I get that uniform look, but it won't make any difference. Only to me. And I'm gonna stop there again, and I could do even one more here in that area if I wanted. But I'm gonna come back, and I think I'm gonna leave that and do something else in those areas that maybe that I done during the month, because a lot of times if I go back and practice the things that I did earlier, it sets that tangle pattern in my mind, and then when I don't have my step outs with me, I think, oh, I can do that particular one because I remember. It just helps me remember. So this one, we will come back and shade these after we're finished with this, but we don't want to shade now because we're going to be putting our hand over the top of this, and it might cause, you know, just depending on what you use. If you use graphite, it smears easily. So I like to do like straight and round. That's one of my things. When I do a tangle, I want to mix curvy tangles with straight tangles. So I'm going to just do a little, my version, and this is Crescent Moon, I'm just going to do a little round, and I'm just going to do the whole thing at one time. Instead of doing a line of ladybugs along here, I'm going to do my little half round, and then I'm going to put two little humps over the top of it. And then I'm going to do another one. And then I'm going to pile one on top of it. So I get these little piles of crescent moons along here. So I will just do a little crescent moon. And it may end up being, so they end up joining each other. But it just adds to that, you know, kind of mystery of Zentangle, because you wonder, you know, I don't, it's just, for me, just adds to it. And I would just maybe just pile them up on each other. And there's our little crescent moon in there. Because I really kind of want some kind of a little border between what goes around and my next tangle. So I'm even going to put this little bug crawling I've always liked, I think Crescent Moon was the very, very first tangle I ever learned. When I taught it at the library. When I was not the teacher, I had a teacher come and teach the group, and I believe that this was one of the first ones she taught. It's a real basic, but I go back to this all the time because it just kind of, it has such a classic look. That's just a classic little tangle. So now I'm going to insert into this area what we call Shay by Shay, or a C curve. She has that in parentheses. She spells it S-H-E capital A, and it's kind of like a mix of rope, you know, lines, and so all of these lines kind of end up joining together. So I'm going to start right here in the center, and I'm going to make a C shape. I'm going to come in close so you can see. It's not very big. If it's about the tip of my pen, it's a small little C shape, but you could make it whatever size you really wanted. And then you're going to make another C shape that goes around it. And you're going to do this C shape 4 times. And one of the keys is to have these end all kind of in a line. They don't have to end in a line all the way down, but these 4 need to end in a line, and these 4 need to end in a line, so that when you come back on it, you don't have a little gap. You can always fill it in, but if they end even, it's much, much easier. And then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to come and draw a C going the other direction. And I touched all of those lines with my C. And this might be difficult to do in this small space. We might have should have chosen maybe another tile to do it. If this is your first time to do this one, you might want to put in a bigger spot. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go back the other direction. And I kind of left a little space in there. And then the C, and this time this C is going to just connect to what's already there. And then I'm going to rotate my tile, and I'm going to do another one. And it doesn't have to connect to where you're already drawing. It can just stick out there in the center. Like this one. I again have just some ends. And I'm going to holly bar underneath, so it looks like it goes underneath. And I'm going to come over here to right here where it looks like, and I'm going to just draw the C shape. Oh, and here my lines didn't quite end up, so I'm going to extend those out. And it's just drawing off the edge a little. And you can go opposite, you know, they don't always have to go the same Mine, those both went the same direction. And if you need to kind of wade in to have it connect. And then I'm just going to come in here and add another one that's kind of going underneath that so that it kind of fills up that space. And so we just have this mass of just lines that intertwine with each other. But the magic for this one comes here in just a second. Okay, what makes this one really fun is when we come back in here and we fill in the space in between. So I'm going to blacken in this space in between the shea. And I'm even going to blacken this in above my crescent moon. This is my favorite part of all tangling. I love the fill-in work. It is relaxing and it just makes your tangles just start to change when you get that I'm going to think the word here in a minute. Drama. Yes, my drama. You have to have drama on your tangles. You have to have light, medium, and dark. And if there's too much light, they kind of just blend into there. If it's all one, too medium, they blend in. Or if there's too much dark. So you want a nice balance of light and dark, and then when we come in and shade that little bit of medium, you don't want to shade too much or too little. You want that nice balance. And I think that's what just starts to make it. And I'm going to shade right out there to my where I do my border. And sometimes I like to pick up a different size pen, but not always, because I'm afraid that what I'll do is I'll forget that I have it in my hand, and then it will forgot what I was saying. My husband said something to me. I forgot what I was saying. So I'm going to go ahead and do shade over into this area just so we can repeat it. So you can see that I'm just going to do the C curve, and I am going to ignore that border. I ignored the border on that one, but I obeyed the border on this one. And then we make another C curve. And you think, oh, how are these going to look when they're done? And it's just surprising how they start to just kind of blend together. Now I'll go back and fill in. And that crescent moon and the C curve start to blend into each other. I think which is the C curve, which is the crescent moon. And I'm going to do this corner, fill it in. So you can see that it just kind of, that's why I think sometimes, oh, how am I going to make this kind of not blend into each other? Sometimes I will come in and I will put just little circles. Now, anyone who's taken my class before is going to say, sometimes, heck no, Melinda, you do that all the time. I love little circles, so I will come in and balance something out with some little circles. So right in the center of here, I may fill that in with just little orbs. And matter of fact, we'll do it and see what happens. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna like it, I think. I'm gonna put them in here too. So you can put just those little, just fills in the background. You can actually go back in and fill in the space in between your little circles to blacken that in, and that gives a whole nother look too. So we're going to do the one that I couldn't remember the name of it, so you don't have a step out to it, and then we're going to do Emily because they're kind of similar to each other. And then I'm going to bring back, well, before I do, I'm going to bring this one in and just show you some of the things I did on the loving template. I used what goes around comes around, and remember last week we learned Springer, I can't ever say it, and I just did that on my ends of my what goes around comes around, so it was a little bit of a vine. I also added in FOF, Field of Flowers, in here, so that it, it kind of gave it just some more tangles. You don't always just have to use you can think back of all the tangles that you've been learning or you have in your repertoire and use them. I drew a line underneath my my loving, because I think there is a line. Let's see if you can see that. I printed it on gray paper. There is a line, and I drew it out and then did a goes around comes around, what goes around there, drew some out, so you can see how you can take that little tangle and just add something that you've done before, another vine. So the tangle that doesn't have a name, and it's right now it's this one, and it could be that I just made it up, but I looked for it and maybe eventually I'll find it. Did I hear somebody come in, maybe know what it is?
Yes, it's for Rosie.
Oh, it is half of For Rosie. You're right. Absolutely. Thank you. It is. I just used half of For Rosie on that. Yep, that's it. Thank you so much. Yeah, like I should send you a prize.
Okay, Jean.
Okay, Jean, you'll get a prize from me. So she's absolutely right. It is For Rosie. So you can look it up, but I'm just going to do it right here in this corner. I do a leaf shape because For Rosie is usually done in a pattern of 4, and I'm not even sure how it starts out, but you could look that up on my YouTube videos. But I just do this leaf shape, and then I'm going to aura the inside of that. And maybe I should come in a little closer so you can see. So you have that basic leaf shape, and then I connect these dots, those lines that come out, and do a little fescue, big surprise for most, and then just do this little, where it kind of just aura, in a sense, it just steps down and you get a little flower shape. And For Rosie, I think For Rosie is done you start with an X in the center, if I remember right. I'm going to do For Rosie. Let's see if I can remember without looking it up what it is. So For Rosie starts with a X in the center. And then it has this leaf shape coming out. I think mine's a little bit huge. Coming out, and then I aura this. This is from memory, so if I'm not doing it, exactly right. I decide it really doesn't matter on tangles if you do them exactly how I do them or anyone else does them. You just kind of get your own pattern. But I remember this is one that can be, and when I do just partial tangles, you just do a fragment of the tangle, you can forget what it is and then connect the lines. You see, I rotate as I connect those lines. I mean, as I rotate my tile. And now we're going to come back in and do some little petals that come down. And I am going to join right on that line so that it disappears, that X. And we're going to do it on this side and just work our way around. And I don't always put the same amount of little side petals that were on it. And there we have, that's what for Rosie. Now to make this for Rosie really bold, you can come back in here and stripe it. See, that's what a live class is like. You all of a sudden you get something you weren't really, it wasn't on the menu. I don't know if a menu is on the calendar, wasn't on the agenda, wasn't on the syllabus. I love unplanned things, so. And I left a little sparkle in there, and I'm not sure I like how it looks. I might go back in and fill that in. I may have too much of a little highlight in there. But you can see you can just come in and really give that some personality by just shading that. We could do that same thing on this one to give it a little bit darker, you know, so we have that drama, because otherwise it's pretty light. And I'm not going to leave a little sparkle in this one. I'm just going to color it. And I always start at the top and work my way down to the center. And the reason I do that when I'm striping is so that I don't end up with a light line on the outside. I want that drama on the outside. And here is a good reason why I did it. Look, the center is white. And if I had started in this center, I would be off and it would be, you know, there would be a light line, and that would not be pleasing for me, because I can come back in here and just fill in a little bit in that center and make it, you know, make it dark. It's really hard to add another line on that outside edge of what you're doing. Now we're going to do Emily, which is really just a fescue. And I use fescues tons. I think that they are so versatile. And then we're just going to do that same step down, coming right down into where we started. And you notice I went outside my border. It happens all the time. I'm always going outside my border. I very seldom. I'm going to do another one going the opposite direction. And this time I'm debating on, I think I'm going to come so it is, you know, right. It just went underneath, the loop went over the top instead of being filled with little circles. So to make this blend into each other, I would do maybe more crescent moon on this side or some circles. Or I may even think back, what was another tangle that I did that I liked that was a little, had a little, either, I would probably keep with the roundness because keep that really square in there, the center. So I may come in here and do 1, 2, 3 in the center here. Just a couple of little buds poking out because that was last week's little thing, and I can just poke some of these out. And they are, if you're not, if we weren't last week's class, that's just that little tiny bud, and I blacken it in, and then I do 2, 3, and that's where it got its name. It was 1, 2, 3, and I kind of morphed from Mumsy, and Mumsy was done in a circle, and I just wanted a line of little things, and so that's what I did, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to come back in here and add my little orbs behind, just to give it some balance. And now we're ready to shade because we can't end the class without shading. We really aren't ready. I would probably continue to draw on this, but we need to do some shading. So I'm just going to take my pencil, and all you need is a regular graphite pencil to shade. If you are doing a project that you don't want it to smear, I do recommend using a color pencil and then blending it with a odorless paint thinner. Or somebody sent me, and I did get that, and I haven't tried it yet, a blending pencil by Prismacolor, and I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to try it and see how I like it. I think I'm going to like it. It's colorless and it blends without, anyway, we're going to try it. So let's start with just adding a little bit of shading, and it's really personal. You just add where you want. I'm going to add my shading on the inside of my what goes around. So I'm just putting graphite on one side of what goes around. Because I had some white space there, and it will allow me to blend. So I just put that, and now I'm going to take my shading stump. And you want one that's clean. You don't want one that's got too much graphite on it, because you want to not, that can cause you to have too dark. And I'm pretty heavy-handed when it comes to graphite. I like it, but I'm just blending out part way. I want to keep that white, but I'm going right over that little 1, 2, 3 that I did. Oh, and I should have come in right here. And what shading does is it helps force tangles to the back of your drawing. So what it did is it forced this tangle in the center to look like it's three-dimensional, like it's down in. That's what this shading did, was allow me, because I didn't shade anywhere else, I just shaded on this one line. I actually went over the line there a little bit. Not happy with that, but I could always take out the, which I say never use eraser, but and erase part of that if I wanted to lighten it up. But that just brings that, puts that to the, makes it look three-dimensional. And then on the For Rosie, I'm just going to shade on that, and on the Emily, I'm going to shade there. These are great spots to add color. For Rosie, you can add great color in theirs with your colored pencils. And I'm skipping over that, what goes around. I don't want to put graphite on that, I want to skip over it so that it stays above, so that for that what goes around stays above this tangle. If I were to shade, it would blend it right down in. And I will probably go back and add more, just to fill that in, more, you know, more whatever tangle suited my fancy to fill in spots. It can be this, it can be, just to balance that out, I might even go ahead and put a Crescent Moon. So they're embedded in, and this is a fun place to put Crescent Moon, right here in the center, but it popping out from in between, just to help balance out the tangle, the tile. So you can see that it kind of balances it out. Maybe it's a little busy, who knows? But there we have the lesson for today. And thanks, Jean, for Rosie. Yay! I have been all week long, I've been looking and looking, thinking, what is that? What is that tangle? And it's drove me a little crazy. I always am thrilled when I really knew when I go to class, somebody is going to know the name of it. Are there any questions or anything from anyone?
What was the last tango?
The last tango, okay, was, I'm gonna have to, was it the 1, 2, 3?
That's the one, thank you.
1, 2, 3, yeah, it came from, I had seen Mumsy, and I don't recall who did Mumsy, but I loved that kind of little blossomy looking tangle, and but I wanted it to go on a ribbon, down kind of a ribbon tangle, and so I just said, I'm just going to do one of those, and then when I drew it, I did 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We talked about that last week, and that's how it got its name 1, 2, 3, because it just kind of, it will just nestle in and go down a line, and it's a great filler. It's a lot like Crescent Moon for me. It's, you know, there's a ton of tangles out there that are just those little filler tangles. So, oh, and I'm going to show you, this is, that's my, when I did the Shea, I did it in a little larger format, so you can see how this kind of it's kind of a wild little, and they kind of look like they rope around. To me, it reminds me a lot of, trying to think of who the tangler that does the string always. You can think of who is it that does, she always has strings in everything, and she's fabulous. Is it Helen Williams? Might be Helen Williams, who does a lot of string.
Yeah, she does a lot of stuff like that.
Okay, that's what kind of reminds me of. I love her tangles of string and stuff, and that this kind of reminds me of that kind of the same thing that happened. And you can see I didn't finish filling in the, I would probably fill in that just with here, because it would make sense to me to have that filled in. And I have not shaded this, and I think I'd have to think about how I wanted to shade, or if I wanted to leave this one so where it didn't really have any shade. It's got that stark black and stark white, and sometimes you can add shading and in the center, and it might not work as well, but I might just add shading around the outside edge like I did before, and just make it kind of pop up. You can see how when you shade, and not shade in here, because I don't like mine to get too muddy. I like them to stay a little crisp, and so sometimes I will just shade and leave this one no black behind there, since we have an opportunity here, and just shade that, you know, so that they kind of gives it that dimension. You could leave a few light spaces and it will give it that dimension. So there we have the tangles for today. So you can add 4 Rosie to the mix, thanks to Jean. And we are going to stop the recording. So, and then